The Queen's Gambit. I talked about in the past behaviors and morality, and today I want to talk about what happens when a person thinks they have you in a hold, and the temptation that comes from that, and the movements that come after that. So, the Queen's Gambit is a strategy in chess that a person can utilize to win the game of chess. It's also a television show, but I'm more interested in the strategy aspect of the phrase. Um, gambits are social. Gambits are strategies or stratagems that are utilized to get the upper hand on another person or another combatant. Um, these are very clever things that you can do to obfuscate your movements and obfuscate your intentions in order for you to come out on top. Um, One of the main gambits, and this video was actually initially going to be labeled the Juliet Gambit, um, but I changed it just because this particular phrase has more popular appeal. Um, but I guess there is a slight difference. Queen would connote that the woman is in a higher position, and perhaps she is, and perhaps that position um, is a position of less emotional, being less emotionally involved, where the guy would be the more emotionally involved person in the scenario. The guy, um, in this particular case, him professing his love or professing his, using words to indicate um, that he's connected to the woman in a inextricably, and that there's not, for the woman that uh, really for anyone who's in that situation who's has any sort of malevolence, and there's not like a lot of character growth. There's emotional insecurity, or there's emotional immaturity, is what I meant to say. Hearing phrases like that and knowing things like that causes an immediate issue. Sometimes the issues come a little bit later, but one thing I could say in my past relationship is that things were easier before declarations of love and all of these other words that we throw out uh, to kind of demonstrate our affection for each other. Um, I've noticed women throw out "I love yous" way easier than guys, and guys, at least for myself, I'll speak for myself, throwing words and phrases like that out. Um, Very difficult to do because as a guy, when I'm saying I love you, I'm saying that it's almost like saying what is it like saying? It's like starting a workout journey, right? And the workout journey is supposed to start, it's gonna stay going forever. Um, it's like rekindling I don't know, a mothership that's supposed to like starting the engine of a mothership that's going to stay started for the entire use of of its journey, and it's also housing the lives of other people and things like that. So like saying I love you for a guy, in my opinion, is like uh, a mom uh, a mom saying it to her child for the first time when the child is born. I think women don't understand, uh, in my opinion, I don't think they fully understand what love is until they actually have a child, because their version of love, at least in a romantic relationship, stems from a guy, uh, from a person that she relies on for her own safety, her own security, from a biological standpoint. So when you flip that around, and this is why I say that she doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand it from a male's perspective, because a male, from his perspective, he has the opposite inclination. He loves a woman because he wants to provide things for her. It's a more selfless love. It's a more giving love. Yes, there are conditions to this, but the woman's love is contingent on what others can give her. So she won't really understand the male version of love until she's put in a position where um, she has to ensure the safety and security of another being, and where that's her full desire, and that doesn't come until she has children. Uh, in this particular case, male children. This would actually explain why women don't understand the male condition until they actually have sons, and that's when they're forced to. But that empathy kind of it comes from being in a position where they love someone in a different way than they're used to loving, that same kind of person. If that makes sense. I kind of diverted from the Queen's Gambit a bit, but I think it plays into it. Males, when they declare their love, and the woman sees that the male made a declaration of love, this declaration of love, we see it as romantic, the Romeo and Juliet. Um, we see it as something that is desirable, in films, in magazines. We This is what women are chasing. But then the astute mind would say, why are they chasing love from another person as opposed to chasing someone to give love to? Um, this is my. I think that they are chasing something because it gives them leverage. I don't think they're chasing it. Well, I think two parts. They want someone to love them. I think that's true, and I think that's justified and fine. But the other half is that they could be chasing that thing because it gives them leverage and it gives them power. And people love power. But one of the powers I've noticed that women wields, and some people say it's, oh, it's the power of, it's the power of what they wear and things like that. It's not just that. That's one of the main ones, but the other thing, and even with that, they only wield that power out of starvation from the other side. Um, but the other main power that they wield is through emotions, and that's kind of cultivated through the mothers to the sons. The Queen's Gambit relies on all the things that I'm speaking about. Um, the idea or the archetype that I'm at least trying to create with this is that when men say they love women, or when they show that they have emotional investment in the women oftentimes become abusive and kind of barbaric in terms of how they respond to the men. They withhold affection and love. They kind of just act very the way that they act is very astonishing, but it also goes unchecked. Um, and the male doesn't really realize this because he has so many chemicals going off inside of his head, and that compels him to listen and follow and just go along with things. But this is what the phrasing is symbolizing, that it signals that he has an emotional connection. And that emotional connection it makes her actions more forgivable. And she knows this. Um, I think she resents this at a deeper level. Um, but I won't go further with that at the moment. The Queen's Gambit is very messed up because the only real counter that I could think of would be for someone who would be willing to utilize another person's emotional connection uh, to kind of just do what they want, to gallivant over people's lives, over their boundaries, is to show indifference. Um, the guys that women clamor, the guys that women clamor after, is it any wonder that those guys are very indifferent, apathetic, and they don't seem to care for those women? Um, This is so I guess I kind of gave it away. That's the solution. The solution in the Queen's Gambit is that a solution for the Queen's Gambit for if you accidentally confess or if you don't confess and you're just with the woman is to never show the emotion of actually being emotionally connected to the point where it's inextricable. Um, if you do, then the difficulty there is in her emotional secure and her emotional immaturity. If she's mature enough, then perhaps it can last for a second. But even then, I think the power that a person could have is too, especially if they don't have instincts to protect you by nature, and their instincts are to provide and protect, be provided and be protected. If you give them that leverage, then they're going to lift the levers in a way that supports their own best interests. And it's going to be based out of fear. So the fear could be that you could leave. So, I mean, that's another thing. A lot of the things that women do, they do out of fear. They don't really feel secure in their lives right now. And this is attributed to a lot of things. Culture is contributed to the men that they involve themselves with. It's contributed to the family backgrounds. The Queen's Gambit can be utilized by anyone, and more aptly, the Juliet's Gambit can be utilized by men. You see players doing this to women as well. Um, the way that they get women to fall for them is, I guess, it's very different, but it's often done by pretty little lies and just stark indifference and showing blatant disrespect. I've noticed those kind of things actually it makes the women like those men more. But then those men are in the same position that the women are in when the guys have a declaration of love for them. So the Queen's Gambit is used on both sides. So you can almost say the King's Gambit is the opposite of the Queen's Gambit. Um, but yeah, this is a painful. The painful thing about this is when you're inside of the relationship, you don't know that this is happening because your brain is changed. It's changing, and you don't understand fully what's going on. Uh, there's more, but I'll talk about it later. The Queen's Gambit.